tomorrow is a 2-day assignment, so I won't be seeing you tomorrow. I'll be seeing you again on Monday. We'll be working with Chapter 28. And in Chapter 28, what we'll be doing is we'll be wrapping up the 1970s. And in the 1970s, you see what is bringing us into where we are right now. So we're 50 years past 1970. And what you're living through right now is the legacy of what you see happening from the 1950s to present. You saw tons of change, and you'll see that in the video that I'll be sharing with you today. So in the 1960s and the 1970s, we had tons of changes for civil rights, whether it's for African Americans or other races or other ethnicities, for women, for LGBTQ rights, bringing up the questions of environmentalism, and how concerned we should be about the climate. And what we're going to find is that with all of that change, we then had a divide that happened politically inside of our country that we're still experiencing nowadays. What we'll find is during the 1970s, this tension is going to create a battle between liberals who want to make change happen and conservatives who would like to maintain the old ways of doing things, the old views of America, whether it is the patriotic views of not protesting during a war, or else the views of the old styles and traditions and cultures of the way that we used to do things before all the changes of the 60s and the 70s. And what makes things worse is during the 1970s, our economy changes too, where we built our factories during the 1940s to be ready for World War II. We helped China, we helped Japan and Germany to rebuild their economies. And we're going to find that our economy that was doing really well in the 1950s and 60s starts to slip a little bit. And then even more so, because we need oil so badly to run the society that we have right now. If you think about the neighborhood that you're in, most likely your house is in a part of town where you need to get into a car and drive to the places that you need to go to. Maybe you need to drive to the grocery store or to the doctor's office or whatever. That's not the way that cities used to be. And that's not the way that European cities were when people migrated from there to the United States. But that is the change that we made in the 1950s with our interstate highway system. So we've now got a system that is totally dependent on having cars and gasoline, but we're going to have our gasoline cut off twice during the 1970s. And those shocks are going to create a huge debate that we're still wrestling with nowadays. So if you're familiar with the climate change debate currently, where we are currently debating what do emissions do to our environment, the bigger question that we got into in the 1970s was, what should our energy look like? Should we be dependent on oil and gasoline? Should we be shifting to like wind power or solar power or those sorts of things? So even that debate, if you notice nowadays, those sorts of topics can even cause people to get really angry politically, because Republicans and Democrats have very different views over how we should solve those issues. And you'll notice we're at that point right now where history and current events and politics start blending together, because a lot of the people that you're going to be studying in these upcoming chapters are the ones that are still alive nowadays making political decisions. So if you think about the two people running for president, Donald Trump and Joe Biden, they are currently in their 70s. So in the period that you're going to be studying right here, they were in their 30s to 40s, around my age, and they were making decisions back then, and they're still involved in our politics right now. So a lot of the stuff that you see them wrestling with in this documentary, they're going to be very much carrying over to where we are nowadays. So this is what you'll be doing over the next couple days. And let me show you your sheet for the class. Make sure you fill out your attendance, please. By Monday, I would like you to get your Chapter 28 text questions done. And then I've got this Ed puzzle set aside for you. It's an episode of the century that is covering the late 1970s. So at this point, Richard Nixon has been impeached. Well, he was about to be impeached. He stepped down. Gerald Ford took over, and he is known for pardoning Richard Nixon. But he finishes out the rest of Richard Nixon's term. And then because we're so turned off to politics during this time period, we actually elected Jimmy Carter, a guy who was known for being the governor of Georgia. He had been a nuclear physicist on a United States Navy submarine. but he was also famous for being a peanut farmer from Georgia who promised the American people he would never lie to them. And what we're going to find is during his presidency, a lot of Americans are going to feel themselves split. And so if you are a Republican or your family is Republican, after Jimmy Carter's one term, we're going to elect Ronald Reagan, who is very much going to bring to America a new vision for what the Republican Party should be, and it's more conservative than what Nixon or Eisenhower had been into. And so he is going to be very much pulling his party in a more conservative direction. And Democrats are going to be split, some of whom want to remain very liberal, like Lyndon Johnson and Franklin Roosevelt, but others realize that from the 1970s on, our country has moved in a more conservative direction. And so there are some Democrats since that time who have become more conservative in their views to try to figure out ways to get elected. And that division is what you saw going on in our current primaries. So if you noticed when we were trying to figure out who the Democrats were going to run for president this year, you had Joe Biden, who is more moderate, Bernie Sanders, who is more liberal, and you'll notice the Democrats were really divided between those two viewpoints. That division started back in the 1970s, and we're still wrestling with it nowadays. So for you guys, those are the two things that I'd like you to have done by Monday. Our plan is then next week, we'll do an assessment early in the week on chapters 26 through 28. We'll then talk about our strategies for how we wrap up the course. But our plan is as of next Friday, we're going to be wrapping up our new instruction so that we can start working with kids who are still having struggles with getting their content done, getting passing grades and whatever. We will still have activities that will be available for you to build up your grade. But at that point, we start trying to figure out our winding down process to make sure that you end up with the best grade possible. What that means then is over this weekend, it would be a really great idea to do your work, first of all, and with text questions, make sure that you're not cutting and pasting from the internet or copying from other people. Do your own work. If you have questions, please let me know so I can help out. Watch the Ed puzzle and complete the short answer questions. Watch it all the way through to completion. And then if you are missing any work, get your late assignments made up because I'll be grading them over this weekend. And I'm hoping to have my grade book up to date by Monday morning so that I can give you a full readout about where your grade is sitting right now. So you'll be able to figure out during the last time that we have together about what you need to do to make sure that you're in good shape. I've got now my chat function open. So if there are questions you guys have, please feel free to let me know. But otherwise, those are the two things you should work on today. Tomorrow, the weekend is supposed to be beautiful. So I would love for you to be able to take the time to enjoy the weather outside. And if you are one of my AP biology students, I am hoping for the best for you on Monday. If you can't attend my session on Monday because of the fact that you're getting ready for your AP test, just watch the recording later on in the day and you will be absolutely fine. So if you want to drop off at this point because you are good, I will talk to you on Monday. Otherwise, feel free to let me know if you got any questions. Thanks, you guys.